If you treat the next 24 hours like any other day, November will treat you like anyone else. The first steps define the month. Whoever moves today enters the flow. Whoever postpones becomes a spectator of their own destiny. This is not a video to watch later. It is the beginning of your October becoming the past and of your standard becoming a reference. There is a specific wind in the field. Tomorrow, Venus touches an old wound and brings to the surface themes of value, self-worth, and unequal exchanges. Not to reopen pain, but to confirm who you are. It is simple and demands courage. Wherever you are, being an option, you withdraw. Where there is reciprocity, you invest. Where your presence shrinks, you choose not to fit. It's not about punishing anyone. It's about protecting what is sacred on your path. Spirituality here is practical, saying no to what drains, saying yes to what sustains. A single honest boundary releases an absurd amount of energy. So instead of promising changes, raise a standard. Decide the minimum you accept in respect, in internal narrative, in exchange. When this floor rises, destiny understands the new architecture and begins to respond on the same frequency. If this found you, seal it with me in the comments. A short and definitive phrase: in November, I act. There is an instant when the body perceives before the mind. Something in you is worth more than the treatment you are receiving. It's not pride, it's measure. All your life, you have negotiated micro-concessions. A silence here, an extra explanation there, and it's okay that wasn't okay. Each drop seemed small until the internal vessel began to leak. Today, the field asks for the most silent and powerful shift of all: to stop asking for a discount on your own worth. Worth is not a speech. It is a vibration that precedes speech. It appears in the way you enter an environment, in the time you take to respond, in the decision not to justify the obvious. When worth rises, anxiety falls, because there is no longer a need to convince anyone. Respect ceases to be a bargain and becomes a consequence again. This doesn't mean hardening your heart. It means hardening your criteria. Love without criteria becomes drainage. Work without criteria becomes exploitation. Spirituality without criteria becomes escape. Criteria is the outline that gives shape to your light. Without an outline, the light spreads and disappears. With an outline, it focuses and transforms. Notice where you are still trying to make yourself understood. The day's energy illuminates these folds. Conversations that repeat, promises that are never kept, relationships that survive on explanations. The exhaustion you feel is not from excessive effort, it's from a lack of reciprocity. When the exchange is fair, the effort vibrates as expansion. When it is unfair, the effort weighs like debt. Worth is also silence. Not the silence that swallows truths, but the silence that spares what is sacred from justifications. There are situations where explaining one more time is, in practice, teaching the field that you accept being misinterpreted. Starting today, choose to save your words where your presence has already said everything. Whoever needs your soap opera doesn't deserve your chapter. The body knows where your worth shrinks. Your breath shortens. Your posture gives way. Your skin feels the environment like tight clothing. In these places, you are not being difficult. You are being lucid. And lucidity has a cost. That of dismantling the roles you fit into out of convenience, but never out of truth. The discomfort is real, but brief. On the other side of it, there is space. Worth doesn't fight. It defines. It says, this is my minimum, without accusing, without dramatizing, without attacking. The universe responds quickly to definitions because definition is direction. From the moment you establish a standard, life begins to reorganize people and opportunities according to this measuring stick. Do some pull away? Yes, but what remains passes the sieve, and the sieve is you. If you fear losing by raising the standard, remember, what you lose by keeping the standard low is invisible until it's too late. You lose future, you lose peace, you lose time, and time is the most expensive spiritual currency. Today, the call is simple. Trade approval for self-respect. At first, it sounds expensive. Later, it becomes cheap to maintain. In this shift, honesty is a tool. Be honest in admitting where you accepted less, where you romanticized crumbs, where you called attachment loyalty. Honest with others, yes, but especially with yourself. Honesty opens a corridor in the field. Through this corridor, only what matches your measure enters. Worth is the shortest prayer there is. You don't need to say it out loud, you need to inhabit it. The vibration does the rest. All reality begins with the measuring stick you use. A standard isn't a phrase in the mirror, it's an invisible structure that decides what gets in and what stays out. As long as your minimum standard is negotiable, your energy will be negotiable too. This is why some days drain you without even a major conflict. It wasn't an explicit offense. It was small concessions passing unharmed through your gate. The field responds to clarity. When you establish a standard, you don't need to watch it all the time. The standard watches for you. It cuts off conversations that already came with less than you are worth. It reduces anxiety because the screening happens before attachment. It gives you back your time, which is the currency of everything you want to build. A standard is not arrogance, it is hygiene. Just as you don't drink cloudy water, you shouldn't accept exchanges that clog your vibration. The dirt in relationships is always subtle. An expectation that only works for one side. A promise that is only renewed when you threaten to leave. A compliment that comes attached to a demand. If the dynamic depends on your exhaustion to continue, it is not a partnership, it is consumption. You don't need to prove anything when asserting a standard. You need to sustain it. Sustaining is quieter than it seems. It is responding less where you have over-explained. It is shortening goodbyes to cycles that are already over. It is removing your body from arenas where the prize for winning is losing yourself. It is opting for conversations that return you to yourself, not to the role they expect you to play. There are signs that a standard is asking for review. You enter a place and your body shrinks a few centimeters. You talk to someone and your voice changes to another octave, higher, cautious, justifying. You finish a meeting and the silence left over isn't peace, it's wear and tear. These signs are not drama. They are measurements of your worth in real time. The measuring stick dropped. The field warned you. Do not confuse compassion with tolerance for the unjust. Compassion sees the other's limits without betraying your own. Tolerating the unjust is turning your light into a shock absorber for others' incoherence. You can be kind and still non-negotiable. You can be welcoming and still close the door to what destabilizes you. Healthy standards do not push love away. They attract the love that is capable of staying. Many people fear that standards increase loneliness. For a brief time, they do. It is the interval between the dismantling of the old and the arrival of what is up to par. This valley is not punishment. It is a cure from noise. It is when you stop using company as anesthesia. It is there that the presence is born, which magnetizes what matches you, without you needing to chase it. Defining a standard also requires the courage to lose the narrative. They will say you've changed. They will call maturity coldness. They will test the gate. The test is not to respond. It is not to give in. Remember that whoever benefited from your low standard will always prefer your more malleable version. The discomfort of others is not a compass. What guides you now is the integrity of staying whole. When the standard rises, your word becomes shorter. Your yes becomes more expensive. Your no becomes simpler. You discover that choosing is not excluding love. It is selecting the type of love that builds with you. You discover that saying less is saying it better, and that silence, when born from criteria, is the language of those who know their own weight. In the end, a standard is care for time. You close leaks, and suddenly, hours reappear. Creativity returns, sleep returns, desire returns. Not because the world became easy, but because you stopped financing what the world couldn't sustain without you. This is how life begins to give back. When you prove, with routine, that you do not accept exchanges that shrink you. The measuring stick is in your hand. Place it where your soul breathes without asking permission. The rest, life adjusts. Have you noticed that your days take on another texture when the exchange is fair? Energy flows, conversations move, the body relaxes. It's not luck, it's reciprocity. When your measuring stick rises, as we discussed in the previous chapter, the next step is to adjust the type of relationship that crosses your life. Reciprocity is not doing the same. It is sustaining together. It is the sum of two whole presences, not the insistence of one presence trying to compensate for the absence of the other. Reciprocity begins with the basics. Attention. Is the person with you really with you, or just occupying a chair? Do they listen to the end, or just wait for their turn to speak? Do they seek you out when they need something, or also when they want to celebrate? Details count. What seems small becomes a standard, and a standard, sooner or later, becomes destiny. It is also measured by the return, not a bookkeeping return, but an energetic one. Do you leave exchanges bigger or smaller? Do you go home hungry for life or hungry for silence to recover from the wear? The right reciprocity feeds. The wrong one charges an emotional fee you only notice when the exhaustion becomes chronic and the shine of simple things disappears. A common mistake is to confuse reciprocity with currency. I did this, you do that. That is a poor contract. Living contracts take into account contexts, times, and versions. Sometimes you give more because you have more to give. At other times, you receive more because your moment requires it. What keeps it healthy is not rigid equality, it is visible good faith. Clean intention, clear communication, and adjustments without drama. The refusal of the unjust, therefore, is not coldness. It is respect for everything you want to build. Because every unbalanced relationship demands a silent subsidy from your focus. And focus, especially in November, is gold. Where you invest focus, life grows. Where you pour focus just to avoid conflict, life becomes more expensive. Reciprocity also has to do with response time. It is not about immediacy, it is about real priority. What matters finds a way. Whoever always arrives late for you, sooner or later never arrives. Not out of malice, but because you train the other to find you in the last spot on the agenda. Notice how it changes when you unlearn this role. The space that seemed empty fills with what was waiting for a more dignified yes. Beware of reciprocities that disguise themselves as compliments. Pretty words without consistency are the cheapest way to keep you tied to a promise that isn't intended to be kept. The test is simple. Does the person's speech improve your practice? Does it welcome your reality? Or does it ask you to shrink so that everything works? If your silence becomes a demand for good behavior, it is not reciprocity. It is control masked as affection. There is another type of imbalance the spiritual one. When you are always the person who understands, relieves, holds, and transcends, you might start to confuse compassion with a crutch. Compassion is not being available for the other's eternal draft. It is calling for the signed, delivered, responsible version. Otherwise, you become a construction site that never finishes, and a construction site gets no rest. Mature reciprocity does not fear boundaries. A clear boundary is an invitation for healthy permanence. Whoever wishes to stay is grateful for the outline. Whoever just wanted to benefit complains about the excess of criteria. And that's okay. Criteria is a filter, and filters exist so that your life doesn't become an accumulation of half-finished stories. Observe what happens when you practice reciprocity with yourself. You sleep earlier, eat with presence, close mental tabs that lead nowhere. Suddenly, the world around you begins to reflect the same care. The client who reneged on agreements starts to adjust or leaves. The friendship that only appeared in chaos finds another place to unload. The partnership that seemed impossible flows with a minimal gesture. It is not magic. It is vibrational correspondence. The measuring stick you place inside becomes the door the world walks through. If you want relationships that sustain your expansion, treat your own energy as something that needs an exchange of equal measure. Stop paying emotional bills that are not yours. Stop financing others' theater with your presence. It is not selfishness. It is the first condition for love, work, and creation to find you whole. Reciprocity is protection because it reduces noise. Less noise, more direction. More direction, less dispersion. Less dispersion, more construction. The mathematics of peace is simple, but it demands courage. Close the faucet that drains to open the one that multiplies. When the exchange is fair, the future arrives sooner. You are not just what you decide. You are what you breathe. The house, the feed, the desk, the conversations, the light that enters in the morning, the sound that closes the night. All of this programs your field even before you want something. November asks for precision, and precision begins with the surroundings. If the environment pulls you down, your discipline becomes a war. If the environment pulls you up, your discipline becomes a consequence. Therefore, before demanding more from yourself, adjust what surrounds you. Environment is not decoration. It is direction. It silently communicates what is a priority. A clean desk isn't an obsession. It is an invitation to exist without friction. A breathable schedule isn't a luxury. It is respect for your pulse. An organized kitchen, a made bed, a ready studio, all of this reduces the friction between intention and gesture. The external world stops being a stone and becomes a track. There is also the invisible environment. Words, tones, expectations. Notice how an acidic comment alters your frequency for hours, while a simple sentence of recognition gives you back mileage. Your month is not just made of tasks, it is made of the climate that sustains each task. When the climate is hostile, the body reacts with protection. When the climate is fair, the body releases power. The common mistake is to imagine that willpower solves everything. Willpower is expensive and finite. Environment is cheap and constant. Exchanging 5 sabotage triggers for 5 support triggers produces more future than promising this is it for the 10th time. You don't need to become someone new to start. You need to stop surrounding yourself with the old that pulls you back. What enters through the eyes and ears alters what comes out through the hands. If your morning starts in noise, your afternoon becomes repair. If your end of the night is anxiety wrapped in blue light, the next day already wakes up in debt. Hygiene of the surroundings is not moralism, It is energetic mathematics. Less noise, more direction. Less excess, more assiduousness. Less fragmented stimulation, more accumulated presence. Environment is also people. There are presences that expand your world vocabulary, and there are presences that return you to the same tired paragraph. It is not always about cutting people. Sometimes it's just about changing which table you sit at, what frequency you offer, what topic you feed. When you change the subject that occupies you, you change the destiny that finds you. The field responds to the predominant theme. November doesn't need an exhausted hero. It needs a curator of their own surroundings. And curating the surroundings is simple and radical. Remove what distracts you, bring closer what fuels you, ritualize the beginnings and endings of the day. Entry and exit are sacred landmarks. The way you open and close cycles determines the quality of the middle. If your morning is born clear and your night ends with dignity, the rest of the route rearranges itself. The right environment also protects your boundaries without noise. When everything around communicates presence in progress, interruptions decrease, demands become more polite, your own mind stops pulling you from the corners. Focus, which previously depended on bravery, starts to depend on conditions, and conditions you create, you don't ask chance for them. There is beauty in this intimate engineering. While many people try to dominate the month with willpower, you choose to design it with context. A studio that waits for you, a full bottle on the desk, a script open to the exact point, a list that fits a real body. This is applied spiritual technology. You honor time by creating the scenery where the best of you happens without drama. Deep down, it's not about austerity, it's about energetic elegance. You stop negotiating with standards that drain you and transform your own daily life into an ally. When the terrain is firm, any seed has a real chance. When the terrain is mud, even the best seed becomes an excuse. The right environment doesn't change you, it returns you. There are doors that only open when you close others. November will not ask you for more strength. It will ask you for more filter. A boundary is not a wall. A boundary is a frame. It doesn't push life away. It gives it shape so that life fits. Without boundaries, everything enters. When everything enters, nothing remains. Energy leaks, focus dissolves, intuition gets buried under requests that are not yours. Boundaries are not harsh sentences. They are clear agreements. When you say yes with your body saying no, the month learns it can summon you for anything. When you say no with respect, the month understands where your road truly passes. New chapters require new edges. It is not about isolating yourself. It is about differentiating what is truly yours from what just seems urgent. Observe the micro-concessions that cost dearly. The message answered in the middle of a sacred hour. The meeting accepted for fear of seeming unavailable. The conversation that repeats without adding a millimeter to your path. November offers you a superior exchange when you stop feeding the inferior one. The universe did not punish you when doors closed in the past. It just removed what was occupying the space of what needed to arrive. A boundary is also rhythm. There are people and tasks that ask for you whole, and there are others that survive just fine with you present in specific windows. When you schedule your presence, life schedules better returns. When everyone arrives whenever they want, the field becomes a public square. November is not a square. November is a temple, and a temple has hours, has silence, has intention. Fear says boundaries push people away. Practice shows that boundaries qualify. They don't diminish encounters, they refine encounters. Whoever needs excess to perceive value is not ready to walk by your side right now. Whoever understands a mature no also understands the power of your yes. And when your yes stops being loose change, it starts to buy destinies that were previously just desires. Intuition works better in a clear territory. Every time you advance without asking your own sensitivity for permission, you pay a toll later. Every time you check your internal pulse before responding, you save weeks of drag. November doesn't want hurry, it wants precision. And precision is the child of two parents: boundaries and listening. There is a phrase that changes entire realities when it is born from within. I no longer negotiate what weakens me. From that point on, time treats you differently. People adjust their approach. Your body disarms the tension that was just defense. Destiny perceives the outline and finally knows where to reach you. A boundary is love with a border. This is how November recognizes you. November will not measure what you feel. It will measure what you follow through on. The difference between intention and destiny is simple. Intention desires. Destiny is what you are able to sustain when no one is looking. This is where it all narrows down. After cleaning up noise and repositioning boundaries, the time comes when a specific choice needs to be born. Not the perfect choice, the true choice. You don't need an impeccable plan, you need an unequivocal commitment. Commitment is not a promise out loud. It is silent priority. It is when you organize the day so that what matters happens first and not last. It is when you stop asking for signs for what is already decided within you. The universe understands your hierarchy by your calendar, not by your speech. Relationships and projects reveal themselves through the investment they receive in practice. If something requires you to shrink to continue, it is not destiny, it is debt. If something requires you to expand to fit, it is the path. There are invitations that seem big, but ask you to become smaller on the inside. There are small steps that open enormous rooms. The compass is not in the size of the proposal, it is in the state it evokes in you. The month debuts with a raw sensitivity. It wounds where it was numb and heals where there was cynicism. This is not punishment. It is precision. Life removes emotional mattresses so you feel the real floor. Without a shock absorber, you go back to walking with presence. And presence corrects deviations that years of good intention did not correct. Coherent choices hurt less than elegant concessions. Saying yes for fear of losing costs more than saying no out of love for what is right. Whoever needs you to betray yourself to stay was never really with you. Whoever stays when you choose yourself is who sees your truth. And your truth is the only place where bonds last. Beware of excess disguised as opportunity. Not all expansion is a blessing. Growing without structure is falling quickly. The question that organizes everything is direct. What about this proposal honors my axis? If the answer is weak, don't compensate with justifications. The soul is not convinced by arguments. It is convinced by peace. When the decision is right, the body relaxes. When it is wrong, the mind makes noise. Choosing is also sealing doors. Without the no, the yes does not create a future. When you define what you won't negotiate, reality stops testing you on the same corners. Life does not insist where it finds a closed gate. It redirects. This is why clear decisions seem magical. They aren't. They are energetic signaling done right. Destiny does not demand haste. It demands firmness. Firmness is not rigidity. It is elasticity with a center, flexible in method, non-negotiable in value. This is the tone of November. The month asks less what you want and more who you are when no one is demanding posture. The answer is not in phrases. It is in your schedule, conduct, presence. In the end, it's simple. You already know what you need to choose. The difference now is that the time has come to sustain it. November will not be about promising. It will be about sustaining. You have already removed excess, repositioned boundaries, and listened to the right discomfort. Now it is time to seal. A month that responds quickly to those who walk with access and serenity, without theater, without explanation. When intention meets posture, doors reorganize themselves. Some close without drama, others open with precision. Accept the intelligence of this. Do not try to save what only existed because you were still negotiating with yourself. Take a simple rule into the next few days. Everything that requires you to shrink costs too much. Everything that asks you to expand while respecting yourself is the path. Trust the body's first signal, not the mind's last argument. And when you need to choose what honors who you have already become, not the version that fear would like you to maintain. Write in the comments, with presence. In November, I act. This phrase is not just a comment. It is a public commitment. Whoever declares moves the field. See you tomorrow.